When it comes to aftermarket bash cards for the 790 Adventure, there's a huge choice in the marketplace. In this video, we'll look at why I chose this Adventure Spec one, and also I'll show you how to fit it. Before I go too far into the video, I'll just explain what might look like some odd cuts in this. I recorded this preamble before I started the install and then discovered there was a problem with the mic, and the mic had failed, so I had very quiet audio and I couldn't save it in post-production. Anyway, onto the kit itself. The standard bash guard on the 790 Adventure does a decent job. If you're riding predominantly on road or just doing simple off-road, it should be enough. But who doesn't like an upgrade? So I was looking at some alternatives. So I was looking for something that would replace that, be stronger, but I didn't want something over the top and too big and bulky and adding too much weight to the bike. And that's why I chose the Adventure Spec Bash Guard, because this bash guard is essentially a replacement of the standard one, just made in a tougher 5000 series aluminium. This extra protection does come at a cost, and that cost is added weight. Now, this Adventure Spec Bash Plate weighs in at 2.5 kilos, which is heavier than the standard one, which weighs in at 1.2 kilos. So you're looking at twice the weight. But of course it is at the bottom of the bike, and I don't think you're in practice going to really notice that added weight. Certainly not with the peace of mind it gives you in terms of protecting all of the bits on the underside of the bike. It fits on all the standard fixing points as well, so there's no extra bits that you need to fix to it, but you'll see that as we go through the process. And it retails at £189, which I don't think is too bad, but I'll put all the links in the description down below. There is an added bonus to this install, because when I told Adventure Spec that I'm going to be filming the bash plate install for my YouTube channel, they very kindly said, well, we've got some crash bars as well. Would you like us to send you some of those so you can show people how to fit them and moreover what they look like and how they work? Now, I'm not entirely sure if I want crash bars on there, but I was happy to do the install. They're very simple to put on, as you'll see. The crash bars are made of 6000 series aluminium, and the one thing I noticed when I picked them out of the box is just how light they are. The lower and upper crash bars add 3.8 kilograms to the weight of the bike. The upper and lower crash bars come as a complete kit and retail at $249. So I'm not going to waffle on too much. We all know why we would want to put a stronger bash guard or crash bars on a bike. It's also nice that Adventure Spec are a UK company, and these guys are very keen off-road riders. So I know that there's been a lot of research and thought and development that's gone into all of their hard parts and all of the clothing and stuff that they do as well. But let's stop chatting. Let's get the spanners out and get this thing on the bike. The first job I had was to remove the rather shonky homemade crap flap that I had on there to get us back to where we would be on a standard bike. The lower fuel tank covers have to come off, so there's 4 bolts in total to remove. One in the side, one at the rear lower, which is bolted to the stock bash guard. That's got a nut behind it. And then you've got the final 2 in the front. And once those are undone, that cover will just lift away, and there's a little drain hose that needs to be pulled out. Now's a good opportunity to have a bit of a clean up before you take the bash guard off. You've got 4 bolts in the front there, 2 at the rear, but don't worry about the 3 in the middle at the moment. We'll do that later. I found it easier to undo the 2 lower ones at the back first, and then you've got a bit more control when you undo the 4. But once you've done those front 4, it just lifts away. Now you can see why you left the 3 bolts in the middle, because that holds this mounting bracket in place. So it's just a case of unbolting that, taking the 3 of the longer bolts from the kit and bolting it into the new one. And then all you have to do then is push the threaded clips onto the floor pan, which replace the captive nuts which were on the original bash plate. You then simply reverse the process to refit it, but this time using the stainless steel bolts from the kit. And I have to say the instructions that come with this are very clear. So you put the 4 in the front, the 2 in the back, and you have obviously already got the mount bolted into place. You're now able to nip those up nice and tight, just to make sure it's securely fitted before moving on to the next step, which is to refit the lower fuel tank covers, and you'll use all the original fittings to do so. Time to stand back and admire your handiwork now, and I must admit I do think this is a really nice looking bash guard. So there you go, that's the bash plate done, and as you can see it's a really simple job, just like fitting a stock one. Obviously the thing that made it easy to fit is that it's well made and everything lines up. Now it's time to put the crash bars on, so I'll go through that process and then you'll get to see the bike in its entirety with all the kit in place. We'll start with the upper crash bars, and the first job is to remove the wind deflector under the headlight, undoing the 2 star head bolts. The bolt for the headlight support bar can be removed, and then in the kit you have a small bracket which you just need to put back in place with the same original bolt, leaving loose for now. Locate the support bolt for the fuel tank on the side and remove that bolt, but leave the aluminium bushing in the centre. There are 2 shouldered bolts in the kit. For the right hand side, pick the shorter one and use that to tighten the crash bar to the frame. At the top, affix the bar to the tab that you've just bolted in place using a short bolt washer and nylock nut from the kit. Repeat the same process on the other side, and you're then in a position to bolt the 2 separate halves of the upper crash bar together. Squeeze the joint for a good fit and then install the 2 shoulder bolts in the kit. You're then in a position to go around and tighten up all the rest of the bolts from the upper crash bars, because that job is done. The only thing left to do is to maneuver the deflector into place and fasten with the original fixings. That's the upper crash bar done. Nice and easy, but make sure you give it a shake just to make sure. The lower crash bars need a little bit more hardware, and you'll discover that to access one of the bolts you have to take that plastic tank cover off again, which is worth bearing in mind if you're going to fit the crash bars and the bash plate at the same time. Remove the bolt at the front holding on the plastics, and then you'll replace that bolt with a different one from the kit, which is longer, with an aluminium sleeve as well, and that just affixes the front of that bracket into place. You can now refit the plastic cover, and honestly you won't have to take it off again. Another difference when fitting the crash bars is that you do need to fit longer bolts to here, so again take the bolts out that you fitted previously and you can then put the crash bar into place and use those 2 longer bolts to affix the front. Another nut and bolt from the kit are then used to affix the base of the crash bar to the bracket that you fitted earlier. There's a similar, although smaller, bracket to the other side of the bike, or the left hand side. This fixes onto the 2 bolts that you can see here, so just whip those out, put the bracket in place, and using the same original bolts, bolt it all back in together. Then repeat exactly the same process to fit the lower crash bar on this side, making sure that the center connector is properly aligned so that you can again get both of those bolts in to fix it. And that is your job complete. Stand back, admire, and give yourself a round of applause or a big thumbs up. If you'd like a little bit more protection, then in the kit are 2 plastic sliders. They just affix over the top of the bar, and then you use 4 self-tapping screws to tighten those in place. These just offer a bit of extra protection for the paintwork on the bars should you drop the bike on its side. Rolling the bike out into the daylight, and these bars certainly do give the 790 Adventure a much more rugged look, and there's no doubting how much extra protection these bars do offer. The plastic panels on the fuel tank do offer good protection, but if you're going somewhere super rugged and you want that little bit more, then these are definitely the way to go, and I think this bash plate is superb. There you have it. Bash guard on, crash bars on. Let me know in the comments what you think. Obviously this is available in black as well as orange. I think the orange might be a little bit too much, but for the fitting video it's much easier to show the orange against the bike than it would be for the black, so that was one consideration for this particular colour. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave the crash bars on. I love the bash guard, but I think the crash bars might be a little bit too much. The bottom of the 790 Adventure is already quite wide, so adding the crash bars only exaggerates that. I don't think that's a problem on road, and actually if you do go down, then those bars are going to give you plenty of protection for the bike in a slide. If you're riding off-road and you're riding down narrow ruts, well, there could potentially already be a problem with that sort of saddlebag tank sticking out either side anyway. Adding bars for that width might compound that. So I'll ride the bike for a little while and decide whether I want to leave the crash bars on or off. One thing that will be staying on the bike obviously is that bash guard, because I think that is absolutely superb. As I said, not too difficult to fit. Set yourself a couple of hours aside to do that. It's taken me a bit longer because I have to film everything and move the camera and move the lights just so that you can see that. But I reckon anybody that's relatively competent with hand tools will be able to fit this in less than 2 hours. So in summary, it's nicely made stuff, it's not too heavy, it fits perfectly, it's easy to install, and it's going to protect your bike. If you have any questions about this setup, you know where to put those in the comment section down below. And all that leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.